So I think you're really going to enjoy this. I'm really pleased to be able to share this with you. Our next speaker has played a really central role for Nissan, certainly in the Americas and beyond, in navigating the semiconductor crisis over the past few years. He himself has extensive supply chain experience that includes in Mexico. I think I first actually met him 15 years ago or so right here when he was Director of Logistics for Nissan Mexico. And he's also held roles in Brazil and in the US, where he is now Senior Director and Advisor for Supply Chain Management. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome Gerardo de la Torre from Nissan. Gracias, Gerardo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Buenos dias. Good morning. I'm extremely happy to be here because I'm Mexican and I've been 12 years out of Mexico and getting this invitation to get back and talk about what we have done for me is an extraordinary opportunity. Soy mexicano y la verdad me da mucho gusto estar aquí. Y espero que Checo Pérez gane el domingo en la carrera en Abu Dhabi. Vamos a ver. I will speak in English and I want to share what we have done to face this crisis. And let me start, first of all, sharing with you. As you may know, Nissan announced a couple years ago the new midterm plan we call the Nissan Next, within the ambition going to the Nissan Ambition 2030, in which this midterm plan aimed to set up many new key strategic corporate actions. One of them, of course, within our manufacturing footprint in 11 countries, after our important decisions on downsizing capacities. Example, we exit Spain, we exit Indonesia, we exit Russia. But in those red countries that you see is where our operations are now running. And what I am going to share is about what we have done representing the Americas region within the global function based in Japan, within all of this, let's say, supply crisis. First of all, and in the top, you guys can clearly understand that one of our key strategic corporate objectives was to prepare the launching of new Nissan and Infiniti models within the optimization of our manufacturing capacities, and at the same time that terminate the production of vehicles that were not more in a priority for global business, or we had to take decisions to exit some segments or markets that, of course, within the downsize directions and within the optimization of our profitability, these corporate decisions were extremely important for our operations. But in the meantime, in the Americas region, which is what I am responsible for, we have, same as everyone, all of this sequence of multiple supply disruptions. It was like almost every 3 months, a new big problem happened. Many of you have said already, the port congestion starting in 2020, just after the COVID initiated. Then we have a drastic weather events in the Gulf of Mexico, halting the production of resins. Only 1 month later, and we heard by first time one of our global suppliers announcing that there was a short supply of semiconductors already 2 years ago. And then it seems like winter storm in Texas that halted the production of at least 2 of the major semiconductor manufacturers in the region. Then less than 1 month after, we have a fire accident in one of our semiconductor factories in Japan that halted another important source of semiconductors for the industry. Then the pandemic that put a lot of restrictions, mainly in the southeast of Asia, China, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, that make a lot of aggressive lockdowns. Then yes, a lot of commercial negotiation with our tier ones, with the semiconductors providers for looking of a long supply term agreements. And recently, I say recently because it seemed that was just yesterday, the Shanghai lockdowns that also were extremely, you can see the statistics of the COVID cases and the Russia invasion in Ukraine. But for us, in the Americas, as a supply chain function, we were ready to somehow initiate with the facing of all of these challenges about securing, do we have the right capacity in our manufacturing plants? Does our tier one have the right level of capacities? Who are the tier ends? For us, that was a super big question at that moment. Do we have enough capacity with our logistics partners? Do we have the quality ready? Do we have everything to keep in our vision and stable manufacturing production in our factories? This is one of the actions. I will start to share in cascade some of the key actions. The first action that we took was about governance. The discipline of taking decision in a systematic way by the correct people in the company with the right level of speed and with all the elements that are required to fix our production plan. We started to set a control tower that you see. I'm the leader of the control tower in the North America operation, together with our purchasing and R&D division, and we have a very close communication with Japan. In the bullet number 2, what we call the alignment of the global allocation is what is going to be globally available for the production. We fight a lot for getting more and more chips to our region in order to set up the best production plan for our operations. A lot of alignments in the bullet 3 with our sales and marketing division, our chairman in the region taking the decisions about how the production capacity will be allocated by model, by market, and then you guys can easily understand a lot of production planning optimization cycles. I want to express my appreciation to all our tier ones, to all the suppliers, tier ends, because the information in between our manufacturing plants, our tier ones, the tier ends, logistics providers, do we fly, do we ship by these mechanisms, do we do other alternatives, in order to really secure that every time that the production plan is being fixed, we could be able to deliver the best production, the maximum optimization of our capacities, and of course, always focusing on our customers, the customers. Then let me share some examples. Information is very generic here for sharing purposes. First of all, we started by validating, together with the tier ones, all the entire tier N supply chain and what we call the flexibility. So we know very well our tier ones, but very clearly I shared that we didn't know well enough the tier Ns. Who produced this chip? Where this chip is produced? How this chip affects our production parts? Do we have interchangeability in between the chips? Are the chips able to be used instead of part A in part B? I share with you guys here some general data. More than 20 global chip manufacturers provide chips for us. This is consolidated in more than 30 global tier ones. I'm not saying just local, global, representing more than 80 different family parts. Family parts mean IBIs, computer, airbag ECUs, etc. More than 2,000 different part numbers to be applied in 17 models in 5 factories. So it's like a very complex sequence of elements that, of course, we needed to really learn and understand how to do it properly. A very strong and direct collaboration with our tier ones, and more importantly, with our semiconductor providers. By first time ever, we opened 3-party meetings, discussions directly with the semiconductor makers in order to understand where the wafer fab is produced, where the back end is done, where the front end is done, where are you guys testing, in order to understand how much the chips travel before they come to a finished part. Chips make 2 times the globe, in some cases, before they come to your vehicle. Then we started, and I need to be transparent, buying chips from the spot market. Suddenly, I started to receive a lot of calls and emails. Mr. De La Torre, we have chips. You may need these chips. I was like, how come this guy has chips if globally there are no chips? And believe me, we made a very quick, fully validated approval of chip makers, distributors, brokers, in order to really find out what can we buy here, what is coming, in order to, again, try to make this as the very fast approval decisions to buy chip locally. I can share with you guys very proudly that our region was the first region doing this activity that then later became a global new practice. Then, what is the flexibility that we could reach by learning what we know now? Not only from the tier 1 part, but from the tier 1 to the tier N. Can we have interchangeability? Can we look at our vehicle lineup? I show here the example of Sentra. Sentra, that some versions of our Sentra use different type of chips in different type of electronic commodities in a such a way that knowing by each of the vehicles what interchangeability we have, can we move from this vehicle to this vehicle in order to really get the best of the flexibility, in some cases even creating new N-item models or grade mix in order to really secure that based on the variability, we could be able to continue with our production. Then this one, I like very much because we immediately knew that we had to do something with all the data that we have validated and checked with our suppliers, what we call in Nissan, through the Alliance New Product Development, AMPQP, component supply chain charts. You can see that more than 30,000 files that we have collected over the last 3 years in Excel formats. They were fully digitalized. We put all of this information in a data lake that enable us to make a lot of immediate simulations within Tableau tools and all of this data that help to take very quick decisions for most of the cases. Some of the results which, in my humble view, I'm extremely proud of how all together with suppliers, with our internal teams, we were able to launch 5 new Nissan and Infiniti models in the region during this very unprecedented supply disruption period. You see the vehicles, our new Nissan Rogue in Smyrna, Tennessee, our Infiniti QX55 here in Mexico, the Pathfinder in Smyrna, the new Frontier, and the last one, Infiniti QX60, successfully launched in the Smyrna plant. But at the same time, it was necessary to transfer models in between factories for the manufacturing optimization strategic objective that I shared with you guys. So the Altima that was originally produced in Smyrna was transferred to Canton, and the Murano was transferred from Canton, Mississippi to the Smyrna, Tennessee plant. Sounds simple here, but when you are in the middle of all of this crisis, believe me, I think I have maybe less than 3-4 hours of sleeping time during many months. And also, it's important to share because as corporate announced the end of production of the light commercial vehicles, it is known by everyone. We had to stop the production of our commercial vehicles, MB300, 3500 and MB4500. We stopped the production of that vehicle in Canton, Mississippi, and the MB200, the taxi or New York, that also came to a termination of production. We were able to honor up to the last order on all of our customers and then terminate the production of this vehicle at the same time of launching more new vehicles. Then this is our new Nissan production models in the Americas. I'm extremely proud to share this with you. This is information that everyone can consult, but let me just give you the highlights. 3 pickups. One of the pickups made here in Mexico, in Cuernavaca. 7 SUVs. You can see that the SUVs, we have 3 SUVs produced here in the Mexico territory, Compass factory and in Aguascalientes. 4 of them are produced in USA. 5 sedan and 2 hatchbacks, including 4 vehicles produced here in Mexico in our Aguas 1, Aguas 2, and plant factories. And of course, our Nissan fully electric and first vehicle in the market, the Nissan Leaf. With this, our results, and another reason why when I got the invitation, I was very proud to accept and come and speak on behalf of our teams and our suppliers and on behalf of you guys. It was possible to secure the production of more than 411,000 vehicles if we were not reacting in the way that we did. Yes, we do recognize that this created a lot of painful situations for many of you and more for us. many down days. Sometimes we had to stop production for a couple of weeks. Painful. But at the end, I just want to express this proud and this strong collaboration because 32% of the total production achieved in the 2021 was thanks to all of these activities. With these actions, it was possible to keep our Nissan in Mexico leadership in the market share. Up to the end of 2021, Mexico kept by 12 years consecutive. This is important position. This year is tough. The competition is tough, but we are ready to continue to compete. As I said, we launched 5 new models, and even we were able to support in multiple cases our operations in Brazil and Argentina within the global and regional alignment of our activities. I wanted to share this because I think it's important that people know that the activity that all our teams did here in Mexico and USA was recognized as the winner of the Global Nissan President Special Award. This is the most prestigious award that the company provides once a year to the group of people in the region, in the globe, that has the most remarkable achievements and the most remarkable contributions. Very proud of being part of this team, and for every one of you guys that have collaborated for this to be achieved, we really want to say on behalf of Nissan, our sincere appreciation. First, to our manufacturing and all our technicians in the plants, not only in Nissan, but in all the suppliers, because we know that it was painful working 3 days, not working 2 days, having to stop weeks, etc. Very, very painful, but we really appreciate that. More than 200 professional members in our organization in the entire region, from purchasing, supply chain, logistics, quality, engineering, manufacturing, production control, planning, etc., that were part of this cross-functional activity. Of course, our suppliers, you, our logistics partners, port companies, rail companies, any other type of logistics services that really, on behalf of Nissan, we want to say thank you. And finally, of course, the future is still extremely challenging. I cannot disclose many information, but we are working in a lot of data analytics, predictive models to understand how the risk will evolve. It is not in our scope of the region, but in the global, on all the pricing, long-term supply agreements application, and of course, a lot of new models that some of you, because are involved into already sourced, but we have in the very short future, at least 2 new electric vehicles that will be launched in our Mississippi factory in Canton, already announced, with investment that are a little less than $1 billion of US dollar. Here in Mexico, as Ivan presented yesterday, our factories are getting ready to incorporate new technologies. Here in Mexico, we are in a very strategic plan to launch new models that are going to come, and I believe that thanks to all of these lessons learned, we can continue to be competitive enough. Thank you for the invitation. That's what I prepared today for sharing with you guys. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gerardo. What a pleasure, and what a great story. Please sit and join us, because we'll shortly invite our panel and we have some questions for us. Why don't you have a sit? Yes, exactly. I think you hit on so many of the key points we've been talking about the event throughout the event here in the supply chain. Strategic integration across departments and visibility, tier N, drilling into the tier N supply chain, integrating logistics providers, sharing that information almost constantly to help mitigate this. And as you alluded to, the power of data and data analytics, moving towards predictive models, so in the future, or hopefully as this crisis evolves, we can be out in front of some of this and not always chasing behind. Although I think we can't promise that every night we'll have 8 hours sleep, but hopefully something like 3 to 4 should be enough, especially with the tequila on the, no, that's okay. But no, thank you so much, Gerardo, fantastic overview. What we want to do now, we want to bring a few other of our experts onto the panel to talk about other areas building on your presentation indeed around supply chain planning, risk management. So I'm gonna invite them to join us now. Our next guest has held numerous positions in air freight across the Lufthansa Group, and he's leading the operational and commercial development across the region for Time Matters here in the Americas, which is in fact celebrating its 20th year. So it's a good time to be here. Mark Krug, Managing Director of Americas, Time Matters. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Marco. Good to see you.
Good presentation.
And also, our next speaker has been with Ryder for more than 35 years, working across supply chain solutions and the fleet business. He's now leading sales and solutions for supply chain solutions and dedicated transport, and has had extensive experience in business here in Mexico. Very happy to welcome Todd Skiles. Thanks so much, Todd. Thanks for joining us. Have a seat.
How are you?
Hi. Right. Why don't we start with our logistics providers, having just heard, some of the insight from Gerardo and how Nissan has been managing the recent crisis. What I'm interested from your perspective is to understand a little more about how you, as a logistics provider, service providers, have been along for the ride, so to speak, in this journey of integrating the supply chain, of trying to improve this visibility in semiconductor and other areas. Has it changed the way you've worked with your customers? And I'll start with you on that topic.
Okay. I would say, the biggest change that we saw was the need for, obviously we needed more flexibility, we needed to react quicker, we needed to create more strategic partnerships with our customers, and we needed speed. We need speed to get things done. I think that before the pandemic, I think a lot of us, I sat right on this stage right before the world closed down, and we talked about, well, how bad could it be? And 3.5 weeks later, it was like, wow, this is pretty bad. But I do think a lot of our partners realized that they needed to create more strategic partnerships with their vendors and be able to work together, and we really create a win-win situation, ultimately benefiting the customers. So, like I said, I think that need for flexibility, obviously visibility up and down the supply chain, and speed to implement was critical.
Mark, from Time Matters' point of view, of course, you're in the business of trying to save the day, but how does it change in this scenario?
Yeah, it's interesting to look at this from an emergency logistics provider point of view. Supply chains were all about, or the supply chain management used to be, not too long ago, about avoiding supply chain disruptions. And we see now, after all the events that were nicely shown as well, that's not possible. You cannot measure your supply chain department on how they are able to avoid supply chain disruptions.
Sorry, Mark, 1 second, yeah? I think we're just sorting the sound there. Can we just test that again? Sorry, we apologies, Mark.
Can you hear me? Thumbs up in the back?
Can we hear, on stage it's hard to tell because I can obviously hear them, so
Yeah, should I try again? Can you guys hear me in the back? Now that's better.
Okay,
I see
good.
some thumbs up.
Very sorry about that.
So not too long ago, supply chain management was partially about avoiding supply chain disruptions. And we see now that supply chain disruptions are inevitable. There's very limited things you can do to avoid those disruptions. So while emergency logistics used to be something you tried to stay away from because it showed that you were not able to manage your supply chain, we are now being involved earlier on by our partners to see how can we help them with the flexibility in case of a crisis. And we've seen crises along the way over the last couple of years. So while emergency logistics used to be more of a tactical thing, it now turned more into a strategic component of the supply chain. And that's good for us to see because that's a better way for us to support as well.
Yeah, and Gerardo, I'm so interested in the detail of those tier N supply chains you went into. When you show the different stages and how complex the chip side is, as an OEM, did you then have to actually get involved in some cases with, or even the logistics of that, or communicating with your providers to make sure that was moving?
Yes, a lot. And let me share some key examples. When we learned what was the sequence of production process and lead time of the production for chips? Example, some wafers produced in Italy that have to be shipped to Malaysia, then in Malaysia needs to be finished and then be transferred to Germany, and then from Germany coming to the Americas. I think we saw a lot of great opportunities to somehow shorten some of the lead times. And I want to express my appreciation because in some cases it was possible to avoid global hubs that in the normal supply availability, I believe is okay. But when you have to launch a new model on time and you are only depending on that chip, not traveling at least 3 continents. Thank you very much to all of you guys that help us to move chips from A to D instead of going from B and C. And I mean a lot with these comments because it was really great to see that opportunities. Of course, with many other logistics providers, it was necessary to adjust the flows. I know it's been very painful because with some companies not related to semiconductors, it created another problems, stocks, excess of capacities, that also together with logistics providers were necessary, together with Ivan and his team and our operations in North America, to always keep the flexible adjustment to align. And again, thank you for all the support.
It's always amazing in the automotive industry when a big crisis hits. You learn a lot about your supply chain, things you didn't realize, right? You think back to the Icelandic volcano from 10, 12 years ago, and turns out, there's pigments from paint that only go in one factory and you can't produce a car. So every time we learn, and I wonder from a logistics provider point of view, has this also been a learning curve? And then do you have another perspective to bring? Can you perhaps also anticipate sometimes some of the, maybe not always in the chips, it could be other areas. We both refer to strategic areas. So is this something that is kind of coming up for you too?
Well, I think, when I take a look at the last 3 years, I think it'd be foolish to say, well, we knew everything there was to know, nothing caught us off guard, we were great, because it didn't happen that way, and it probably didn't happen to most of us that way. So a lot of lessons were learned around what we have to invest in on behalf of our customers, and really what they're looking for, once again, from a partnership. I think the thing when we look at moving forward, when you talk about predictive analytics, and it's a hot topic across the board, doesn't matter whether we're talking about automotive, CPG, healthcare, it's a very hot topic. It starts with the collection of data and then hiring and coming and having the right people to analyze it and look for the trends, build the algorithms. So while I think we're further along than we were, we're certainly not ready to say we've got that, follow me, I'll show you the path. I still think there's a lot of issues that revolve around how data is shared, who customers are comfortable sharing their data with. Automation is playing a big role in data collection. As more and more labor costs go up, especially in the warehouse, we start to look at automation as an alternative where maybe it wasn't a couple of years ago, which also helps collect more data. And then you just have to be able to interpret it and figure out what it's trying to tell you. So I think we've made big strides. I think we have a long way to go.
And Mark, again, time matters, and perhaps also across the Lufthansa group, is it because you have a wider perspective of where all of these emergency shipments are going? Can you, in some cases, also share insight and data to help get ahead of this?
Yes, so wherever possible, we share the data with our customers. We do analyze big data flows in order to see where are the big movements, where are the shifts in the industry when it comes to material management. We don't do that individualized per customer, but we look at the bigger data streams and then also adjust our networks based on that. Yeah. So we are using a lot of the belly load capacities for what we do. So basically we invented the unaccompanied baggage system. That's something that was told that it's not possible, but we are able to do it. And for that it's important to have strategic partnership with our airlines that we work with, also outside of the Lufthansa group, in order to accommodate our customers.
Okay, yeah. Oh, so that's a case where you can put cargo on a passenger plane without it being attached to a specific passenger. Is that what that
basically it's what used to be an OBC. We can ship in the belly load unaccompanied with the same day product that we pushed into the market.
I see.
So that's something that is new to still some of the airlines that we're working with, but that's a very quick and reliable way to get our shipments from A to B.
Yeah.
In general, over the past couple of years, crisis management is what we do
Yes.
at the core of our industry. So while it hit us with a high workload those past years, it didn't really get us outside of our comfort zone, because that's what we do. We navigate in complex environments and find creative solutions. So it's all about the flexibility. That's part of what we do, and it really helped us to navigate and help our customers as well to prevent some of those production line stops that we saw happening across the globe.
And Gerardo, I mean, we all often hear from tier ones and from logistics providers that they want the forecasts and they want them more accurate and more frequent. And in this case, you must have had to share information at a faster rate than before, because it was frankly changing so fast.
Yes, as part of this control tower governance that I shared with you guys, of course, very important point is that after decisions were blocked, we have to announce, we have to inform, we have to share with all of our tier one suppliers, with all our logistics suppliers, regionally, locally, and globally. When I made the comment globally, is because, as I shared, many of the restrictions were not even decided here in the region, right?
Yeah.
So the alignment had to go for this global scope in such a way that, unfortunately, every time that the production plan was absolutely necessary to be changed, yes, announcing, informing through our website, conference, people somehow dedicated to secure that all of you suppliers were informed. We hear clear and loud what were the concerns, what are the obstacles, but again, working together with this strong partnership, as have been expressed in multiple times, I think we have advanced. Yes, I think we have yet opportunities to make more faster, accurate information sharing with you guys for planning purposes. And it's one of our activities on development about what else could we do, taking advantage of the new technologies and the new collaborations to be able to come to you guys, and I'm talking about logistics provider, with a more stable plan. I think we all dream with a stable production volumes and demands that will bring back to our normal life. But I also need to be transparent. Let's be very clear that in my personal and humble view, I believe this crisis is still at least 2+ years to still advance. So keep sleeping 3 hours per night. No, I don't think it's a problem, but I think it's still a long way to go, to be honest.
Well, Mark, maybe you can arrange some beds on the Lufthansa for us to at least take a nap whilst moving some of the freight.
We're working on it, yes.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm interested in, I'd say the non-traditional decisions that an OEM like Nissan has had to make in this crisis. Okay, so obviously decisions on prioritization, what plant will get a chip in a certain situation, but also to sometimes potentially build an unfinished vehicle, or, without a particular chip or plant. How have you managed that? Because of course we've seen in some parts of the sector quite a high volume of unfinished cars built and then come back into the supply chains. Can you give us some insight on that from Nissan?
Well, thank you. It's a very important question. First of all, the big priority for that decision, it's always been quality. Quality is never on the table to negotiate. Quality is a must. And within this control tower, if in certain situation was necessary to take decision of building incomplete vehicles, quality teams, manufacturing teams were able to give us the decision yes or no. What were the drivers of the decision? The drivers of the decision were mostly, do we know when the parts will come? Because if we do not know, our decision was always not to produce incomplete cars. So our policy is no more than weeks, I could say months, which is not acceptable. And I can share many examples of extraordinary collaboration with suppliers that at the end, when the decision was to build a group of vehicles with lack of parts that could be retrofit with all the quality protocols, the commitment to deliver the parts and deliver the vehicles to the market was always priority. I can share that we have now a couple of vehicles here and there, but thank you to everyone in our Nissan groups, thank you to the involved supply. Last night, I met one of our suppliers with whom we are now dealing with this case, but I trust that we can work together to reduce the lead time and put the vehicles in our customers' hands. That is our policy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's an important one to note because there's a lot of unintended consequences that can come in the supply chain based on certain decisions, related to inbound logistics and outbound logistics related to capacity, truck drivers availability when certain flows happen. And so for you, Todd, I'm interested in these sort of, maybe not as this specific example, but when an OEM needs to make these sort of new types of untraditional decisions, are you working with them to make sure they understand all the consequences? So if you, for example, have to hold freight and then release it all at once in a large flow to make sure that the right logistics capacity and drivers would be available, just for example?
Well, I think we try to do our best. I don't know, sometimes some customers are more receptive to working with a partnership and others are more, hey, I'm going to kind of tell you what to do when I need you to do it. But the reality of it is that most of especially in the automotive world, we've worked together for many, many years. And there's been a trust that's built up over time. They look to their third-party logistics partners to provide insights, to provide opportunities maybe to see things in a different way, maybe challenge some assumptions. At the end, it's still the customer's decision, we get that. But as a partnership, you're pretty much obliged, if you're of value, that you're going to work with those partners, you're going to help them understand what they might not see, and you might offer some alternative solutions that maybe they're not even thinking about to solve the same problem.
And Mark, you said earlier that obviously typically premium freight has been a tactical decision, right? I need to move something now, and now it's becoming more strategic. What does it look like? I mean, does that mean, I don't know, reserving air capacity in advance, setting something more regularly? Can you just give us some examples of what that looks like?
Yes. So in the strategic partnerships that we have with our customers, they approach us with certain material flows where they know they're vulnerable in their supply chain and where they see that emergencies might occur. So then we go in, analyze it together with them and look at what are the issues that they're facing along those supply chains usually. And then we basically find partners and we customize a solution for their specific needs, for their specific type of cargo, for their specific pickup times. We do dedicated pickups and drives exclusively, so we are quite flexible when it comes to how a solution should look like. We don't do any milk runs, we are not restricted by any type of vehicle or anything that we do. We do DGRs, everything. So basically, if we are approached with a supply chain as a whole, we can then see where do our solutions fit in and how can we make sure that we can pull the trigger on short notice in case something comes up.
Absolutely. I want to also make sure the audience the floor is open for questions, and again, you can answer. Yeah, I think we have a question right here in the front, actually. If we can, Hazel, bring the microphone right to the. Just put your hand up again. Was that there? Yeah.
Morning. Yeah. Good morning. So my question is, how do you decide which data is really useful, or how do you establish which parameters you're going to use in order to solve the crisis?
So how do you prioritize the data in making decisions? We're going to start with Gerardo on that one.
It's a great question because we manage thousands or millions of data, right? For all the decision making, of course, key data about lead times, capacities, volumes, interchangeability, application. When I mean application is which commodities apply to X models, and of course capacities. Of course, within all of this, data was, I believe, maybe one of the most stronger foundations to really be able to take decisions. Yes, you are right. There is information that may not be the driver of the right decision, right? Which, in what we have learned, is information that is still unconfirmed, still unconfirmed. That is the correct way. So before taking a decision in something that is just an assumption, I'm very sorry. And that's what I meant in the governance rule when I said discipline process to take the right decisions with the right level of people based in the right level of data. I strongly believe that data management, data integration, data analytics, data simulations, predictive scenarios, proactive risk assessment is still a huge opportunity. One of my dreams, before I retire, if I can make it possible, is to make this connectivity fully automated between all of us. I made this comment because I do respect companies that have to manage information internally, but please think about the power that we all will have if we all unleash the key data that is necessary for all of us in the different steps of the production and supply and logistics chain. So hopefully I can make that dream come, but it's tough.
Well, you plan to retire in 2050 or 2150 now? Just
No, I don't know when I'm retired. I know what I do.
I think, but it's really good points, and I'm interested from the logistics provider point of view too, in terms of looking at prioritizing, qualifying, and analyzing that data. How does it work from a logistics provider point of view?
Well, I think it starts with a knowledge of the industry. One of the things that when we approach the market, certainly a number of third-party providers do the same, is through a vertical integration. So we try to find professionals that have years of experience and knowledge in the automotive world, so that they bring with them that knowledge of how manufacturers, tier one suppliers run their business. But the other thing that we've done, which I don't think is necessarily unique, but has been successful, is integrating our employees into the organizations. We have operators, engineers that are actually co-located with our customers, so they can understand the nuances of what our customers are going through and what they're looking for. And then they work together to figure out, to that gentleman's question, what data do we need in order to support this decision-making process? What creates noise? What creates real information? But they have that knowledge of the business to apply to it. Because while a lot of the automotive businesses and a lot of our verticals have a lot of similarities, they also have cultural nuances, they have strategic initiatives that are different by company. So, you can't just dismiss that and say it all looks the same, do this. But by embedding people and having people with the right backgrounds and knowledge, it certainly helps that process.
Anything you would add there, Mark?
Yeah, I think that there was also, I think that's an interesting question. The transparency that we give to our customer is also customized to how much transparency do they want. Because I think to give transparency to data is one thing, but then to dump it basically on the customer for them to figure out what is important and what is not important, that's not reducing complexity on their end. So I think we see that also in our private life. We have access to so many data right now. If you look at your phone, you have so many apps, so many things you can do, but to manage through the complexity of all the data is really key. So we have customers that give us shipments and say, you manage it for us. Tell us if something goes wrong, and the service you provide to us is that you take care of it. And I don't need that. I don't need to get all the insights of every single data point there, because I'm managing my own complexity. I was from a logistics provider point of view, it's fascinating to see what you presented, all the different steps, the warehouse managing you have, the production lines that you're moving around. If you have a shipment stuck somewhere, you have enough of things to worry about. So that's why for us it's all about what does the customer want to see. If they want full transparency, we give it. But there's customers that also say, deal with the problem and let us know when the shipment arrived.
It's a good point, and what we see when we're talking with OEMs globally, I mean, there's no one-size-fits solution to this. You need to integrate maybe a tracking system that can feed into an ERP, MRP system and be able to see, okay, a critical part is short somewhere in the supply chain. Now we can react on that. If you don't have that integration, then you're kind of looking out into the void as well. So, and it's, I know this has been a big project at Nissan in terms of the system integration across North America as well, as elsewhere too. So very interesting how this fits into this dynamic. Any other questions from the audience? I think I see a hand towards the back. Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see in the light. We'll take the one here and then we'll go in the back.
All right. Sergio Gutierrez from RPM over here. This is a question for Gerardo. Let me start first with a comment. Congratulations, Gerardo, and thank you for sharing these accomplishments. Not only because it really shows the product that was produced, but much more for the mindset shift, challenges status quo. So the question I have for you is, now that you guys really improved the flow to get chips, to produce vehicles, to put those vehicles potentially in the hands of your final consumers, the question I have is, are you seeing the same appetite and the same mindset shift applied to the process of distribution of vehicles? Because now that the product is ready, is Nissan and probably a question to the other OEMs too, is willing and trying with all their passion, the same passion that you shared, to change the status quo about how distributing vehicles could look like. Because there's new standards, there's new things, there's new equipment, there's new things. But are you seeing the same passion now that the cars are ready to push them to the finish line? And what are you guys doing about it?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sergio. And same as what I said at the beginning, it was very nice to see you and find you after a long time. We will work together and now find you here, same as many other great friends, Sergio. Yes, I think from what I have listened and from what I have seen, I think there is still a room for opportunity to, in alignment of the collaboration and the successful performance of the automotive industry within this crisis, to still bring more proactive, more anticipated solutions to the big issues that has been explained in this forum. I fully agree with the comments that were done in the previous presentation on the AMIA, because I do believe that hearing the same problems, it seems to me that there is opportunities for more collaboration within the transportation companies, finished vehicle logistic companies, because together as an industry is what I think we can make things happen from what the situation is facing now. But I also need to say that I have seen a strong mindset, always an intention to solve the issues. Thank you to you guys again. I know it's not been easy, lack of drivers, lack of equipment, on safety situations, but I strongly believe that together as an industry, we can do too much better. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we had a question in the back we'll take.
Thank you. My name is Laura Ferrer. I'm a student of the Universidad Panamericana, and my question is, what are you going to do with all your workforce when the auto parts manufacturing industry requires less than 1,000 units instead of 20 to 20,000, with the imminent rise of the electric industry?
So the question was, because as EVs increase and the EV has fewer parts, as Jose Zozaya alluded to, what will happen to the workforce as the complexity decreases in manufacturing? This was the question.
Well, there is a lot of, I don't think the workforce will necessarily reduce. I think the workforce will have to, again, in the cycle of the industry evolution, to change to a new learning, to change to a new skills, to develop new competences. And that's why the talent promotion, as Ivan mentioned yesterday, that's why the talent promotion, the talent development, the opportunities for our team members are extraordinarily important. Because what we know on how to do today will not be the same that we will need to do in the future. Electric vehicles creates significant new challenges, important new opportunities, of course. We know how to build electric vehicles. We started the production of LEAF in our Tennessee factory more than 10 years ago. And within this expertise, of course, there is a lot of, I believe, strong opportunities for talent development, for new competencies, and continue with bringing the evolution of the market and the evolution of our cars to the new technologies, etc. I don't think will be like a situation where people will have to abandon in this industry. I think you better put energy, you better decide to learn every day, you better decide to collaborate every day, because that is what we will make all of us together stronger and to deliver on time.
Thank you.
Never stop learning.
It's a good message, and I think just to build on that slightly, yesterday, you wouldn't have heard, but the speaker from Volkswagen also made it very clear that although the talk of reduced complexity of the EV, they're not really seeing it so far in reality. It's turning out to be, as Gerardo alluded to, quite complex, especially in the supply chain, to build EVs. And it's also important to note, when we talked with Toyota yesterday, and you look at Mexico, Mexico is going to remain a very diverse production center for a long time to come. There's obviously ICE vehicles, there's hybrid, EV, hydrogen, something Toyota was talking about bringing. Mexico exports to markets like South America and Asia, which maybe won't electrify at the same pace. So I think that complexity and diversity in the supply chain will also remain, and that makes the job here critically important, because we'll be managing complex flows in factories and from multiple suppliers. So I think, but the message, never stop learning, is good, and this is something we'll talk about as well in the next session after this, when we talk about career development in logistics as well. But thank you so much for the question. I know we're running a little bit short on time here, but it's so engaging. I think it's very much sort of worth it. I want to be a little cheeky and ask our panel to look ahead a little bit and tell us what, we're talking here about planning for crises, risk management and avoidance. We're understandably talking about semiconductors here. What else should we be looking at? What other risks do you see on the horizon that we need to be preparing for in the supply chain? Whether those are things that are already happening or you see coming. Todd, from Ryder's point of view.
Well, I think when you sit down and you say what's coming, are we going to go into a recession? If so, how deep? How long will it last? What will be the impact? Will it be a soft landing, a hard landing? We recently had a customer forum, and that question went around, and there were people pointing up, people pointing down, and other people were running for the door. That's just the reality of the situation. You also have the political climate in the United States. I mean, you've got the midterm elections just behind us. You now have the House and the Senate divided. So there's a lot of change still happening, but what I would say when we look down in the future is we're trying to find partnerships where we can invest on behalf of our customers and our partners to try to get them through these type of situations. So things like, you bring up labor. How can we better use labor? How can we use labor across our verticals? We had a situation where when the automotive plant shut down, we were able to shift the workers, the drivers, into our CPG customers, and everybody cooperated, helped pay for the cost of doing that, then we were able to shift them back. So I think when you look at technology, you look at labor, and the overall, economy, it's going to take a lot of strong partnerships, and it's going to take a lot of collaboration to work through them, but we will, as we've always done in the past.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, where are you picking up risks on the horizon that we need to be paying attention to?
I think to predict any upcoming crisis is going to be difficult, but I think what is key is in this world where we have so many different data points and so many different things that take our focus away from what we actually able to do best, is to go back to focus on that. So in case of Nissan, they're good at manufacturing cars, and to find suppliers that take over parts of the supply chain, in this case we're talking about logistics, implement them, build trust, visibility, and then work together as a team is something that will be key in the future as you're building your cars and you have all the craziness going on around you. So I think a flexible approach gives you the opportunity to navigate through that. Whatever it is, a snowstorm in Texas that nobody saw coming, or an election result that is different than you thought. If you have a flexible setup and partners that you trust, you'll be able to navigate anything.
That's a very good point. Gerardo, you already told us 2 or 3 years more of the semiconductor seems not unrealistic. What else do you see? What else do you anticipate in your supply chain to be ready for now?
As type of issues.
Yeah.
Well, I just anticipate that the supply disruptions will not go away soon. Therefore, I believe that the collaboration, the finding of even new partners that are not now working together with us. I can share that we have one of our strategic projects is going back to the question of data analytics. I strongly believe that we have still a huge ocean blue on what to do with the information, as you have alluded, because that can help to predict, right? But all of the external issues that we see, political, inflation, economic, of course, will continue to play. And on top of what we have seen, I think, in my view, will require to continue to work as we are. You made a question that I think is important to share some point about more strategic long-term actions. Mm-hmm. In my previous role, after this role in Japan, I stayed 3 years in Japan, and in my previous role, I'm responsible of the global sales planning department in in Japan for the entire global company, I clearly learned that in order to set the strategic actions of the future, first point, you need to follow the midterm plan of the company. Which are the new vehicles that will be launched? Where and why? What are the markets? What are the segments? Who are the customers? How we want to make competitive approach to be them. And from that to this forum, I think, yeah, long-term supply agreements through our tier ones with our semiconductor makers, which again is not a responsibility in the region, it's a responsibility in the global. Making sure that we all understand within the technology. Yesterday, Ivan presented about e-power. Yes, e-power, electric vehicles, all solid-state batteries. There is a lot of new technology that is coming. And of course, to adapt to that technology, strategic future actions are the development of all the new skills, as I mentioned. And of course, capacity, suppliers, etc. It's a big group of strategic action that hopefully with passion and with people feel proud of what we do, we can make it.
And that is the perfect note, I think, to end our session with here, with that passion, with that desire to keep learning. I think building on what we'll talk about later in the conference when we talk about skills development and our student forum, Gerardo's set a really great example here as well for all the potential that we have in the supply chain in partnership here to have a huge impact on companies and in society indeed. So I thank you for that, Gerardo, and I thank you to Mark and to Todd for these great insights and this fantastic discussion, and thank you for the great questions as well.
Thank you guys.